The new Harley Street Rod is the newest member of Harley's street platform. Think of it as a more badass version of the Street 750, a bike for riders that want something with meaner looks, a bit more performance and a more dynamic riding experience without sacrificing the Street 750's accessible, competent and comfortable character. A bike that is still user-friendly and designed to draw people into the brand. At £6,745 in black and £6,995 in colour, which makes it Harley's second cheapest bike, and accessibility is a core part of what defines the street range. Looks-wise, the Street Rod is taller, ground clearance is up to 193mm from 145mm, it has a 10mm shorter wheelbase and is more aggressively styled than the Street 750 thanks to it passing through the hands of Harley's Dark Custom Studio. Its added visual bite comes from a new stubbier tail unit, liberal use of black paint, new split 7-spoke 17-inch wheels and an intake scoop that draws inspiration from forced induction hot rods from 30 years ago. But the Street Rod hasn't just passed through the art department at HDHQ, and it also boasts engine and suspension changes. Harley claims that the Street Rod's single overhead cam 4-valve 750cc Revolution X V-twin engine now produces 20% more power and 10% additional torque thanks to new 42mm throttle body, new high flow cylinder heads containing high lift cams, plus a shorter 2-into-1 exhaust. But it's also worth noting that it is 5 kilos heavier than the Street 752. The engine delivers plenty of punchy and torquey power from the moment the throttle is opened, right up to about 5,000 RPM with peak torque of 47.9 pounds-foot, hitting at 4,000 RPM, and the motor is happy to keep pulling while it lazily revs higher. Peak power of 69 horsepower arrives at 8,750 RPM, but by the time it's spinning that fast, the engine's torquey character means that it's time for another sturdy feeling change from the 6-speed gearbox. Keeping the motor spinning in its torque-rich range means that there's always plenty of shove on hand to propel you away from a turn. All in all, the engine is pleasant and pokey, but the Street Rod's frequent inability at finding neutral is less of a reason to cheer, and on every bike I rode I had a problem hooking neutral, something which became exacerbated by the fact that the neutral light packed up on one of the bikes I spent the most time on. Still, that didn't eclipse the fact that the engine is friendly and accessible with good fueling and the throttle that's just so, as is the suspension. For the most part it was soft and comfy, which gives the Street Rod a planted feeling, but it wasn't totally perfect and it could become unsettled. Releasing the front brake could result in the forks rebounding too quickly, and on anything less than a perfect surface the twin piggyback shocks could start to bounce around. But stick the Street Rod on a smooth and sweeping trajectory through a corner and it's well at home. Just be aware of the unimpressive Michelin Scorcher 21 tyres, which give little in the way of feedback and feel. Braking at the front is handled by new sliding calipers and 300mm discs, which felt powerful enough with a bit of lever squeezing. The wide bar can get vibey at 70 miles an hour, but it gives excellent leverage, although it does mean that the Street Rod is a wide bike, so it's not going to be up to much in dense city traffic. There's a single face clock mounted smack bang in the middle of the bar. At first glance it looks super basic, like it's just a speedo and an odometer, but the jab at the function button reveals a digital rev counter and a gear position indicator. The switch gear and buttons are less pleasant because they just feel really cheap, and when using them, with the indicators in particular, there's little in the way of decent feedback. The 765mm high seat is comfortable and the ride position is definitely at the less extreme end of Harley's spectrum, with feet only a little bit forward thanks to the mid-mounted foot controls, plus an easy reach to the bar. I had to stretch every now and then to stop my hips from becoming uncomfortable because of the way my legs were splayed out, but too alien. As an introduction to Harley Davidson, which is exactly what the Street Rod was for me, it was a pretty agreeable package. It was a nice mix of good torquey power, easy handling and performance, and even though this is a Harley that's easy to get on with and ride, there's still plenty of attitude and charm present. It's a badass but manageable step into the mark from Milwaukee.